Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for the most important hour of the day, the first hour. Well, Dennis, the S&Ps are getting a 9-point boost here in the over markets. SPUs started trading Sunday night, had a dip down below to 1281 and a quarter, and have a high of 1302.50.
Yeah, the market is trading up here. Oil stocks are very, very strong. Financials looking a little weak. We had Citigroup and Wells Fargo just report earnings, and financials are looking down.
Okay, we've already traded over our, so the projections have already been fulfilled. At this point in the session, we are looking for the midpoint, the 1292 level, to act as support. That also would be coming into Thursday's intraday high. So a lot of support in the 1292 area if we do get a pullback. Dennis, we got a little shakeup in the Big Ten here. The S&P changes the weightings every quarter, and ExxonMobil climbs back to number one. So starting with ExxonMobil, you had a double top there, Dennis, from 84.92 and 84.96. We busted above that level. Approaching 86.21, which is Tuesday's high, and then, of course, 86.67, which has been the high of the move. Coming back on the downside, we expect to find support at Wednesday's high, 85.40, and, of course, all the way back down to those highs at the $85 level.
Yeah, Joel, commodities very strong this morning, and ExxonMobil's no exception here. It's trading up almost a buck, 85.86 after closing at 84.88. You're right, Joel, 86.21. Keep an eye on that high. That was the high there from the 10th. And looking back at that overall 86 area, that was, resistance for 3 or 4 days before that, so that might provide some psychological resistance as well. So I'll just call it resistance 86.
Okay, moving on to our second component, sliding down to number 2, Apple Computer. Really quiet day again on Friday, almost matching the range from the previous day. Thursday's high, Dennis, 422.85 and 422.90. Looks like we're going to be opening up right into the teeth of that resistance. Above that level, I'll be looking for the 4-day high at 426. Coming back on the downside, I expect to find support here at Friday's high at 420.45. And also, interestingly, folks, pretty rare, but you do have a double bottom here at 418.66 to 418.75. So Apple giving you some good numbers today.
Man, this stock has been quiet, Joel. You're right, and eventually it's getting ready to wind up for something. I'm not sure which way it's going to go, but it is starting to form a little bit of support here down in this 418 area. We're trading 422.70 right now, so up $3. Keeping an eye on the Google indicator. I always use Google when I'm trading Apple, and Google's up $6. So I don't know why, but Google seems to be leading Apple. Just what I've noticed here the last couple of weeks. So if you are trading Apple, you might want to try out that Google indicator, see how that works for you. But with Google trading up here $6, Apple strong as well. You're right, Joe. You get up to that 426, 427, 75, 52-week high. You should see some resistance up there.
Okay, next component, IBM, after breaking down a little bit last week, making a weekly low at 177.35, down at levels you haven't seen since the end of November. Got a rebound to close at 179.16. Currently trading above Friday's high, 179.61, so that should be your support level. Not seeing a lot of resistance, Dennis, up to 181.91. That should be your first stopping point on the upside, and then you got another buck above that to 182.81, which was Wednesday's high.
Yeah, this chart just does not look pretty. Even from a technical perspective, you could argue that whole head and shoulders thing. I've never been a big pattern trader. I'm more of support resistance trends. But if you are one of those pattern traders, you can't really argue with this head and shoulders that has formed, and eventually here it looks like IBM has a nice trend actually too. If you look at it right there, downtrend forming. So we've started to cut through that 180. We're bouncing back up to retest it this morning, trading 180.30. But from a technical perspective, it still looks like rally should be sold on this one.
Okay, moving on to our next component now, Chevron Corporation, moving up to fourth in the Big Ten. Closing strong on Friday, 106.09 close with a 106.15 high. That coincided with Thursday's high at 106.04. So major support now looming in the low 106s. Coming back on the upside, fulfilling a gap there through the 107.13 level. So we are through that. That will be minor support. Next resistance point I see is Wednesday's high at 108.68. So seems like Chevron Corporation kind of shrugging off the news from last week, Dennis.
Yeah, Chevron, it broke that uptrend. If you looked here on the charts here, just pointing it out, we had this trend going up here. We broke through that. We've kind of found some support down here. We're rallying back up towards where that old uptrend was happening. So maybe you find some resistance up here in this 108, 109 area as we get towards the top of that trend. 109 was a key number 3 or 4, well, I guess going back to a couple of weeks ago, and you wonder if that number could come back into play. The big resistance is up at 110.99, the 52-week high. That probably doesn't come into play for a few days. If we can continue the rally, though, I'd look to be a seller up in that area.
Okay, Microsoft on the move. Dennis finally got through that 28.20 level with the burst in the close on Friday, closing at the high of the day, 28.25. Now we're trading firmly above that support at 28.48. So that area now, that whole 28 to 25, the 28.20 level should serve as major support here for Microsoft. Moving up, Dennis, we're starting to sniff some levels we haven't seen in 1 year in Microsoft. I got some highs at the end of January last year at 28.93 and 28.99. So this thing is knocking on the $29 level on the upside.
I was going to say the same number, Joel, at $29. I think that's where it wants to go. We've obviously broken out there Friday. Nice breakout through that 28.15 resistance we were talking about. Trading 28.48 right now. Did close at 28.25, which was a strong close. There isn't a lot above here. I do think it has the potential to get to that 29 area and possibly as early as today. Keep an eye on Google and Apple. These all tend to move together. So if you're trading any of these tech stocks, it's a good idea to watch the peer group there.
Opponent moving up a few notches. General Electric still sniffing that $19 level, Dennis. Tuesdays and Thursdays high at 19 and 19.05. I'm a little surprised at this thing, with the SPUs up 9, that it hasn't been able to take out that $19 level. Do we have some size in the New York book that is holding it down?
Yeah, that's what's holding the price back. I think is still that 19. That 19 area has had some huge sellers on the NYSE exchange. That liquidity obviously becomes active at 9:30, so that's what holds the price down here. Did skip above there. I think it traded as high as 1903, 1904 there in the pre-market before giving back here a little bit. But that 19 is a key number for this stock. Starts to break out over there. I wouldn't want to be short, but expect high frequency resistance in the 1895 to 99 area as they lean on that 19 number.
Yeah, the above that level, minor stopping point at 19. Could be looking at later in this week at 1953, which was a high back on July 22nd. Coming back on the downside, since we are trading above the close and the high 1884, that will be our support number. Moving on to our next component, Procter & Gamble just kind of been quiet lately, Dennis, after hitting some major resistance in the mid 66s. We pulled back the close at 65.81. We'll use that level as support. Breaking above the 66, which was Thursday's high. Really looking for the mid 66s now here. Wednesday's high at 66.31 should be the first stopping point. And above that, you have the weekly high at 66.87.
Yeah, this stock gets thick whenever you get in the 66s, but believe it or not, I'm starting to see some size form at 66 even now. So whoever was trying to sell probably up in the 66, mid 66s, looks like he's getting a little more aggressive, starting to step down to sell 66. I think that you're going to see your first resistance point right there around that 66 area as we may open into that resistance, trading up here 11 on the market. I think it'll struggle to open over 66 though.
Okay, AT&T got a big move here in the pre-market. Dennis, up 21 cent. That's sometimes more than a stock moves an entire day. Knocking on the door at the weekly high, 30 and a quarter. So if we do open up in this area, you can't hold 30 and a quarter. We'll expect to pull back at least to Friday's high at 30.10, which was buffeted by the close at 30.07. On the upside, besides that 30 and a quarter number, I'm looking at the 8-day high at 30.68.
Yeah, I think you're going to run the resistance here at that 30 and a quarter. I'd agree with it, Joel. That's what's putting a cap on it here in the pre-market. Trading quite a bit of size at 30 and a quarter, 30.29, or actually 30.35 trade up to earlier this morning. But it looks like it's getting thick here in this 30.25 area, so I'd expect that your first stopping point. And then I agree, get back in that 30.50 area, and then that gives you some resistance as well. And keep in mind the $30 psychological support area.
Okay, moving on to our ninth component, falling a few notches, J and J, currently trading up 24 cents in the pre-market, opening right into resistance. Thursdays and Wednesdays highs right here at the 65.50 level, the 7-day high at 65.60, the 9-day high at 65.88, on and on we go, all the way up to 66.03, which was the high at the end of last year at on December 29th. Coming back on the downside, I expect to find support at the close at 65.26.
This 65 and a half area, right, Joel, is like starting to form a new wall. We said the Great Wall of China was up there at 66, starting to form a new wall here at 65 and a half. If we can pick away at that and take that wall out, then you'd start to talk about that 66 area again. But until we can take out the 65 and a half, that's going to be your early resistance.
Okay, and our 10th component, replacing Coca-Cola. We're back to Pfizer, folks. Not a big mover, but just been moving up steadily here since back in time from $18, over $18 now, knocking on 22. And Dennis, there has to be a monster seller at 22 in this thing. It's just, I'm looking at the charts. It's banged up around there. The last 4 days, the high's been 21.95 to 22. Is there a couple million to sell there at 22?
Some size there for sure. It doesn't look like enormous. Like for the stock of Pfizer, you think it could possibly take it out, but there are definitely some major sellers there. From probably some hidden ones as well. So this 22 number is key. It's good that you pointed that out, Joel. I do have a trading position in there, so I just wanted to disclose that as well.
Okay, and just closing up on this Pfizer here, minor resistance at 22.20, but the next major number on the upside might take a few days to get there. Is 22, and that was a high back in March of 2008. So Pfizer getting into uncharted waters here, something we haven't seen in 4 years.
What was
So
that number again, Joel? You just broke up right when you said the number. 22.
44.
22.44. Okay.
Yeah, that was a high back in March of 2008. So Pfizer mounting an impressive rally here. SPU's just hanging out at 1,300, folks. We got back up there after being under 1,100, trading at the 1,300 level. Keep an eye on that Globex high at 1302.50. We're going to take a quick break, get a few word in from our sponsors, and be back with many of our market movers.